Hi, my name is Donna. Welcome to In a Pickle Knitting, a video podcast about knitting and other kinds of fiber-related crafts. I am coming to you today from Northern Virginia. Today is Thursday, September 21st. Sorry, looking down at my notes. And welcome back. If you have visited before, thanks so much for coming back. And if this is the first time you're seeing a podcast, I'm so glad you found me, and I hope you enjoy what there is to see today. Today is episode 4, and it is in which Anna gets a new coat, and there are cupcakes, which I mentioned last time might be happening, so I'm going to give that a try today. I did have someone respond that they'd like to see that, so we'll see how that goes. Let's see. Let's just get started. We'll start with some finished objects, of which there aren't that many. I don't know what's going on. Feels like I've been busy and knitting a lot, but I don't seem to have made all that much progress. But anyway, we'll start with our first finished object. If you watched last time, you might remember that I was making those 6 hats for my sister's granddaughters, and I had 4 of them finished, finished the 5th and didn't like it. So I revamped. I'm using this pattern. I hadn't printed it out, so I've got it here. Mrs. Claus Boxy Hat by Stephanie Lotvin. And this is a free pattern on Ravelry, so you'll see that looks really cute. They did 3 colors on that one. So I thought I would give that one a try with using the pattern. And this is one of my finished hats in purple, the favorite color of the twins. And here is the second one, which is also purple. And these were all Cascade yarns, and I did talk about the colorways last time. I also have project page for this, so if you want to go to my projects, you can get any details. But it was a really easy pattern, fun to make, and love the pom-poms on there, and I hope they like it. Now I can get this mailed off to my sister, and she can decide if she wants to hold on to them for Christmas or give them to them maybe at the first snowfall. They do live in Colorado, so that could be well before the end of October. So that's my first finished object. Well, and it's also my last finished object, although I do have something that is halfway finished. Last time I talked to you about the pencil socks that I was making with yarn from the Yarn Enabler, and I did finish one. And maybe this side looks better because it doesn't have the jog quite as much, at least. So these socks have given me I guess I got in a pickle with these socks. I've had a number of little problems. I hadn't had the ball band last time, so let me show that today. Yarn Enabler, and she has a website where she sells a variety of different yarns. She's in Canada, and she does gradients, and she does this pencil sock I think is very popular. She does one that looks like notebook paper and other things as well. She is part of a duo that has a podcast called Dye, D-Y-E, Another Day, and I enjoy that podcast quite a bit. The co-host is Christina from The Cozy Knitter. So this is Yarn Enabler's yarn. Now the second sock I have gotten a start on. But the problem I had with the socks was all operator error. What I had done was started toe up because I didn't know when I would want to start using this color for the toe. Not knowing how long it was going to take it to knit up, so I thought toe up was the best way. I did use a Turkish cast on. I believe that was the first time I ever did it, and I loved it. It was so easy. And I watched a video podcast on YouTube, and I just thought the host did such a lovely job of explaining it with really close-up detailed, you could watch her do it. So she did hers 2 at a time. I wish I had done that. What happened to me that was a problem was I did the entire sock, less the heel, because I typically do an afterthought heel and was going to do the same here. But one thing that was a problem was I'd never done that when there were, pearl stitches to pick up. So I had put these pearl stitches in. I did 60 stitches, and so I would do 9 knit stitches and 1 pearl, so that it divided it into 6 sections, as many pencils are hexagonal in shape. I wanted it to sort of look like that. Well, when I went to pick the stitches up and then cut, which I did, I didn't pick 2 of those pearl stitches up correctly. And so to try and remedy that, I moved back on both sides, and that still was a problem. So eventually I decided the best thing I could do, or it probably wasn't, but it was what I thought of at the time, was just split the socks and finish this one up this way as if it had been, so I had the bottom of this one, and the other part, I'll grab it, was the top. And I thought, then I'll just take this one and finish knitting down, which will change the toe, because of course I'll know when to start it at least, but it won't look the same. But I'm going to try and do a center decrease rather than the traditional one I do, and see if it looks a little bit more similar. I used this time the Mina Phillip has a pattern for her version of German short row heel, and she has a mini gusset that helps give some space there. And if these are for me, I need the space. I need a lot of space. These I'm probably going to give to a colleague that I have it still working at the school I taught at. And I think she doesn't have as high an arch as I do, but somewhat. So I have made her socks before. And so I did want that little mini gusset. Now, coming toe up, it ends up being right here. And I don't think mine looks wonderful, but it did add a little space. And I decided to do it, which I'm really pleased with, all knit, so you don't purl back any stitches and you end up with a garter stitch on the heel. But when I put it on my foot, of course, the heel would have stopped here. It's very low for me. And so I decided just to continue with some garter stitch here, which involved purling, because now I was in the round instead of going back and forth. But that was okay, and I know it looks a little odd here, but on the foot, it looks much better on my foot. So I'm hoping this will work out. Need to finish it. I get sometimes a little matching obsessed, which is, you know, it's an indulgence I give myself. And I had to make a matching project bag. So this is my pencil bag, and it did hold the yarn and more. It has a front pocket, and I did it in pink for the eraser. And then inside, I also lined it in pink. But inside this zippered pocket, I put gray for that metal part of the pencil. I don't have any brown, but the rest are the pencil colors. So this is my pencil bag, and what I think I might do is go ahead and gift this along with the socks when I give them to her, so she can always use this for something at school or whatever. Okay, so that's my half-finished object. Then I have made some progress on my Doodler shawl, which last time I had just started it. I did have another little problem, and that is yarn chicken and losing. The main color in this shawl for me is indie dyed yarn, Zia Wools, and it's a really pretty color. And I realized on the last wedge in this shawl, I'm not going to make the last wedge. I'm not going to be able to finish it. So I went over to the Doodler pattern page and looked at projects, and some people who did this it was originally, I believe, a mystery knit along a few years ago. And some of the people in the mystery knit along also ran out of color B, or no, this is color A, ran out of color A. And so they did a striping. And I thought to myself, I can't match this yarn at all. I ordered this yarn maybe May or June or something. So there's no way I'm going to get anything else that matches. Her site didn't even show the colorway. So I did the striping, and I'm not sure how I feel about it, but I will let you be the judge. So last time I just had these little wedges up here done, and excuse all these strings. I do not weave these in until I'm done blocking, until it's dry. I've had trouble with having done that in advance and not being able to have the shawl block out the way that it should. So I do have a lot of the strings here. But I finished all the wedges, and then you'll see down here I had to stripe, which I think may be okay. The pictures that I saw on Ravelry, theirs all looked really nice. I just haven't decided on mine if I like it or not. And then color B is the brown, which is a Malabrigo sock yarn. And this is a cabled section that increases with each cable by 2 stitches. So it keeps getting bigger and bigger and harder to actually perform the cable because it's very, very tight. But then, you know, of course it relaxes out as you do more rows. It has a lot of eyelet details. I think when I block, you'll see they continue up into where these connect. That'll show up more when I block it. And but my problem, I couldn't understand what the problem was because I had more yardage than the pattern stated you needed. And I didn't swatch, but what I did do was at the very beginning, when I actually had some garter stitch there to check, I was at gauge. But this is what happens when I knit, especially this is a single, a fingering weight single. As there's more weight to the shawl as you're knitting, you get this weight pulling down, and my gauge loosens. I think it always does, and I can't combat that actually with the way that I hold my knitting. I think if I could keep it weighted in front of me, maybe that I could do that. But logistically for me, I have to knit with a lamp right over me and a magnifier, in addition to readers, taking my prescription glasses off and putting readers on because I can't see well enough anymore. And I have to then hold the yarn because that magnifier only goes so many directions. I can't get it in a different position so that I can take the weight off the yarn unless I stacked my lap with about 5 pillows. So anyway, that's my fault. I should have thought of that in advance. I should have maybe picked my color C, which is another Malabrigo, as this color, because this I could get another skein of, and maybe it made this the border. What you have to do now is pick up stitches all along this I-cord edging, and then there's going to be lace here that makes a big border, and then I am going to trim it in the brown. I'm fairly certain I have enough of the brown to do the I-cord bind off. I have about 47 grams still left. So I think that will work. I was concerned when I had to use some of it for striping that I would end up with a problem, but I think I'm going to be okay. But if not, I can order some more of that, in which case if I just ordered more and just did the bind off with it, it wouldn't need to be an exact dye-lot match because it's going to be at the end of a large section of the pink. So anyway, that's my doodler, and I'm really happy to have made some progress on it. I wanted to have it finished. I had my little calendar all planned out to finish, but as you know, for everybody, life gets in the way and you run out of time, and best laid plans don't always work out. So my next work in progress, I mentioned last time I was doing a pair of Norwegian mittens, and I've made some progress on them. I also mentioned I am not good at color work. I have a very hard time tensioning yarn correctly in my right hand. I practice sometimes just doing that, trying to throw or flick with my right hand, and if that's all I'm doing, I can keep a steady tension, but when I'm doing my continental and that at the same time, it never works out. So I am going to continue these. I'm going to finish the pair. I hope I get better as I'm going, and then I'm going to continue to practice because I'm not going to let this get me down. Like knitting, it took me a while to get going where it looked good and I was comfortable. So I'm going to do that with these too. But here's what I have so far. I shouldn't even put them that close because you're going to see just how bad the tension is. But that's what it is. Here is what's where you're increasing for the thumb. And I have a little mistake in here. I think white was supposed to be up there in 1 or 2 spots, but I just kind of missed that. There's so much to keep in your head while you're doing this, and it reminds me of what it is to be a beginner at something, and you always have to remind yourself that practice makes such a difference. For so long I used to have to sit with, okay, put the yarn this way and hold here, and it was very slow, and every time I'd start up again I had to go through the same process. And now you just grab it and you go, and it's second nature. So I hope that will happen to me, because I love the stranded color work. I love so many of the objects that you can make with it. So I am keeping this in this bag that is one of my favorites, and if you've watched before, you know I'm a retired school librarian, and so these are library cards, and this is a bag from the Silver Shed. Let's see here, the Silver Shed, and I like this little bag. It's I've used it for a number of projects, and so I'm using that for the mittens right now. And this is a pattern by Skein Knits, and that is Ellie. She has a podcast, and she has started a Salbu Mitten Club, and this is the first official pattern of the club, although she included another pattern that she had written for mittens. So I'm hoping to get better as we go and keep working on that. No, it's not all of my works in progress. I just cast on a new one, which, you know, that's just not smart. It's how I get myself in a pickle. But, because I've got a lot of stuff to work on here and get done. But the 5th Shawl Society shawl came out, and it took me a while to get it cast on, because I was trying to debate, do I finish the Doodler before I start this? But this particular pattern is so easy to follow, and I thought this is something that might be nice when I'm maybe not having to concentrate on the lace part. The lace doesn't look particularly hard on the Doodler, but you know, still it's different with having to count a lot and not having to. So I decided to go ahead and cast on. I already had the yarn. I've had the yarn since she announced it. So I will show you. This is the Wishmaker shawl is the name of this 5th shawl. And you're seeing Helen Stewart in one of her versions. She did offer it, of course, you know, you can, I didn't print the other picture. You can do whatever kind of yarn, you know, you want to do, but I did choose one of the yarns that she selected, which is Blacker Swan, Falkland Islands wool. And this is a DK weight shawl, and these are 50-gram balls, and it takes 100 of 3 colors. So this is 3-color shawl. So this is my first color, and then I also have a navy. This is called Teaberry. Yeah, Teaberry and navy. And my final color is called Sand. So these are the 3 colors I'm using for the Wishmaker shawl. And I have to say, even though I'm only at 10% done, I really like the yarn. It's got a wonderful bounce to it as you're knitting. This is what I have so far, and so this is only 10% so far. You know, just garter stitch and increases going on. And I've got that in one of my own bags. This is a bag I use a lot for shawls. Keep the pattern in the front pocket usually, and it holds, it's got 6 of those 50-gram balls in there, and it'll hold quite a bit. Okay, so that is all my finished objects and all of my works in progress. For the future, I tend to do a pair of socks every month, at least 1 pair every month. And so next month, being October, I will wait and do these on October. I make my own project bags, and then I see so many cute ones and I buy them too. So this project bag is from the Fat Squirrel, and I love that black cat on the pumpkin. This is light color on the inside. I really like light colors on the inside, although I don't always do it. It's so much easier to find things. And what I'm going to do is this colorway from Adelaide Cottage is called Autumn in Rhineback, and I think those colors will be really nice for a pair of socks, a pair of autumn looking socks. And I'm going to be using, and I did not bring the pattern upstairs, I'm so sorry. The Crazy Sock Lady has a sock pattern out called Rhineback is Calling, and if I can figure out how to do it, I'll try to put a picture over here. of those socks and give some more details. And of course in the show notes I will definitely include all the details. So I thought, okay, that's kind of, you know, double rhineback thing, a rhineback pattern, rhineback yarn, my little Halloween October-ish project bag, and from the Knitty by Nature I have this little pumpkin progress keeper. I will put that on my socks. And so those will be my, I'll be finishing up objects, but I will start a pair of socks, and that will be my October pair of socks. So that's what's coming up. And I have a few things for the end. First of all, I'm going to put at the end cross stitch, which I wanted to show some of my favorite cross stitch projects that I've done in the past. I really don't cross stitch at all anymore because it's too hard for me to see. I have a great deal of difficulty with that. But I love cross stitch, and I did want to show you a couple of my favorite things that I ever made. Most of the cross stitch things I made, I gave away, a lot like some of my knitting. But I have a few things that were specifically for me and a couple that were my favorites. So at the end we're going to do the cupcake as well. So cupcakes and cross stitch at the end. And also a drawing. We have a winner for the goat in the rug, so we'll do that at the end. And I want to talk about what's got me so excited. I can't even tell you how excited I am. So that will be at the end as well. But for right now, the segment we want to, or I want to go to, is our book section where we're connecting fiction and nonfiction with fiber. And today's book is one of my absolute favorite books. Let me grab that. This is called A New Coat for Anna. And this book is so wonderful from my perspective as a library media specialist, and actually when I was a third grade teacher, because there is not a great deal of historical fiction written for young people. It is written, but you know, it's not a very popular genre, although any of the historical fiction books that I did use with my students was always immensely enjoyed, which kind of surprised me at first. But you'll see this book here is written by Harriet Ziefert and illustrated by Anita Lobel. So A New Coat for Anna in historical fiction setting is post-World War II in Europe someplace. The setting's not specifically identified, but post-World War II Europe. And of course, you know, rationing had taken place and resources were very limited, very scarce. And Anna has outgrown her coat. She absolutely needs a new coat, but money is not to be had. So this book introduces the concept of bartering, which is, in my county, a second grade curriculum objective that's also reviewed in third grade. So I did use this in the library with second grade to talk about the concept of bartering as well as identifying human resources. And human resources are always identified by the job that they do. So we would, after reading the story and enjoying it as a story with lots of realia, we also then would make a flow chart that showed the process of what happened for Anna to get her coat each step of the way, and then identified the human resource and talked about what was bartered in order to get that part of the process. So it starts off with, you're going to need some wool. So Anna and her mother visit a farmer. Now again, they don't have money, but Mom does have a pocket watch. And so they're going to use the pocket watch to barter with the farmer for wool from his sheep. And so for realia there, we've got our little sheep and our watch. And when they come back in the spring, because the farmer says he can't shear them right now, you need to come back in the spring, we've got some wool. And they talk about carding the wool. So we've got our carding combs. And then we have some wool that I think this is roving. I'm not a spinner or weaver. This is the wool then that they receive. So they receive quite a bit of it so that Anna can get her jacket. So a barter took place there. Well, next they need to turn this into yarn. So it has to be spun. And at this point, I wish I had a little spinning wheel because that would have been perfect, or even a large one to demonstrate. but alas, I'm not a spinner and I did not have access to that. But the spinner is going to spin the yarn for them, and they're going to trade a lamp for her spinning the roving into yarn. So now we have our bare yarn. But Anna doesn't want a white coat, she wants a red coat. So at this point, this is not going to be a barter. They didn't barter the lamp for the spinning, that service that was provided. Instead, Mom and Anna go out and collect some lingonberries and come home and dye the yarn red. So now they have their red yarn. At this point, I always talk to the kids about something that wasn't in the book, that at this point you could take that, what you have in fiber, and weave it into cloth as the book does, or you could take the yarn and knit. And so I would have a little knitting sample and on some of the red yarn. But they do take it to a weaver. And if you recall from previous episode, when I did the goat in the rug, I had used my loom. I have a little loom, and that's why I had red on it, because she's going to weave red, take this yarn and weave red fabric for them, and they're trading or bartering with a garnet necklace. So that's the trade there for the service of weaving. They trade an object there. So that's the next step in the process, and when they come back, they have red wool fabric, which again is not a coat. So another step has to happen, and that is going to the tailor who's going to sew the coat for Anna, and they're going to barter this glass teapot for his sewing service. And then when they come back, she's fallen. Apologize for bending down. There's no good way to keep everything at finger's reach. So Anna then has her red fabric has now been sewn into a coat for the winter, and she is ready. She does go back and visit the sheep at the end. They do have a little party where they invite all of the workers, or all those human resources that were needed to have this happen. So today's story is not about knitting with the yarn, but instead weaving. Again, we had the goat in the rug, which was weaving, and this would be weaving into cloth to make clothing. And then of course you can have conversations about what clothing do you have, and how is it made of wool, or is it made of something else. So that's our book connection, and we will have a drawing for the book, A New Coat for Anna, and I'd love to send that out to someone who might be interested in having this book. It is, I think this is a lovely story. It's very nicely told. The illustrations are lovely. You can see the process happening in these pictures. And you see Anna in her too small coat and why she needed a new coat for Anna. Okay, so that is our literature connection. So the next thing I'll talk about, the knitting part is definitely over. So I said cross stitch and cupcakes. So cross stitch, that was one of the very first needle, other than sewing, needle works that I did. From cross stitch I went to needlepoint, but stayed with cross stitch throughout that. Needlepoint was in there alongside cross stitch for a while, and then cross stitch continued. One of my favorite things that I ever made was a Christmas stocking for my daughter, and here it is. You can see it has a lot of detail. It's a little girl's room with a dollhouse and pictures on the wall. This is done on a Laguna fabric, if I remember correctly. It's been a while. It's got your window where it's snowing, and the girl's bed with her dolls, including Raggedy Ann, and a perambulator with a bunny and a little doll, and a tea party set up, her christening dress on the wardrobe there. So this Christmas stocking was part of a series, and then sewed it with a taffeta backing and some cording around the edge. So this pattern came from a magazine called Cross Stitch and Country Crafts that I subscribed to a long time ago. I think I made this stocking about 25 years ago, so it's been a while. This is not the magazine. This is a leaflet. That magazine was published by Better Homes and Gardens, and they also would publish some of these things in leaflet form. So later I purchased the leaflet, even though I have the magazine. This is not the particular one. They did a number of stockings that coordinated with this, and that had been my plan, was to make one for the entire family, and that never happened. I got the first 3 letters of my husband's name done and never finished. They also offered for each one an alternative that did not involve as much cross stitch, so with still a name at the top, and you know, it's quite a bit, but not as much detail as the other stockings took. So if you were interested, you can sometimes find these on eBay, Cross Stitch and Country Crafts. It's another issue with a little boys' room. And they had workshops and kitchens. Oh, they did it for a number of years. And then they did put together a book that contains them all. And that book, I think it must be out of print, but you can still find pictures of it, and I think it has all the patterns in it, but it's really hard to tell. There's no indicator next to the book of whether it had all of these patterns in it, but I know it has a few because I think you can see one at least on the cover. So that is my absolute favorite. Although I will say, if you're making something like this, the stocking really doesn't hold all that much, and so this is a decorative piece. I have a place that we hang it on display, and then our real stockings, so that we can jam pack them, are bigger. Okay, so you could maybe bake it on bigger fabric, but it can't be Aida fabric because you need to do sometimes over 1 stitch. So this is done over a 28 count maybe, and you're going over 2, but sometimes you're going over 1. So it needs to be an absolute even weave, not where there's something that you can't get through in the middle, which you can't on Aida cloth. The next thing that I made, I did from a pattern, but I didn't do it from a pattern. I remember seeing this in a magazine where you could order the kit that came with the floss, the pattern, and the fabric. And, you know, when you can look at something and tell exactly how to do it, or just do it your own way from then, I don't know why I need a pattern if I can just see what it is. That's not really a pattern. But it was more like the materials, and of course the materials aren't that hard to get either. So I actually took the picture I saw in this little catalog and designed my own. I added my own little features, but this, okay, here it is. I have covered part of it up. You know, I'm not sure exactly how much detail of your life to put out there for mass consumption, but this, as you may have remembered mentioning when I talked about charity knitting, my daughter was an extreme preemie, and so those are her feet print when she was about 5 weeks old, 4 weeks old. So it is her little bracelet that didn't go around her wrist, instead was taped to her incubator. That is her lock of her hair, a little pin, my husband's baby ring. And then, so it was really just, you know, the design was just the words and the blocks, and then they had different designs. I had a pattern book that had these little designs that I put in there. So this little shadow box has been in our house and is one of the precious things I would grab if my house was under fire or flooding or something. I would definitely grab this because it's very meaningful. I have frequently taken it out and taken the spoon off. I've got it stitched on with silver metallic thread and cleaned that spoon, and it's been a couple of years since I've done that. So that's a favorite object. And I did make a few little things that had the matching or coordinating little things. I hung these in her room, and cross-stitched pillow. Doesn't look very smooth. It's had all these things sitting on top of it that matched that as well. I don't have those patterns anymore. I don't remember the name of the book, what they came from. They weren't something I was going to do again, so even though I hang on to everything, there was a point that I cleared some things out, and that got cleared out. So that's my cross stitch. I love to cross stitch. I think it's lovely. Just wish I could still do it or had the time to do it. So the next part is going to be cupcakes, and I have mentioned before that I used to every Monday bake cupcakes and take them into school for the faculty and staff to enjoy if they could get there and get one before they were gone. And over that time, I did about 4 or 5 years, there were some recipes that were favored more than others. This particular recipe is for a chocolate chili cupcake, and I had that recipe requested. I had requests to make that again. I didn't do a whole lot of repeating in those years. Tried to do something a little bit different every week. But this one I did repeat at least 3 times, and I had, by request, and I had one person ask me for the recipe to make for her family, and I have made it for my family as well. In that process, I did tweak the recipe a bit. So the base of the recipe came from this book, Wild About Cupcakes. And when they did the cupcake, it was made like this, and this is a chocolate ganache and then decorated with a little chili. The first time I made it, this is the way that I made it, and I will tell you, if you make it this way, there is quite a punch. That chili is quite a punch because it's strong in the ganache as well as being in the cupcake, where it's a little bit more muted flavor. And I do like it that way, but I found that in general, if you don't know your audience is going to like that much spice, I found putting cream cheese frosting on top was a very nice pairing. And one of my friends even said she was doing something this year, trying to find something every single day that was what was the positive thing for the day, or something of that nature. And she told me one day when we had these cupcakes, that was my good thing of the day. She really enjoyed the flavor of these cupcakes, and that was with the cream cheese frosting. So here is my chocolate chili cupcake with the cream cheese frosting, and I am going to include the recipe, which is not exactly from here because that was a starting place, and I did make some changes. One of my main changes was you were supposed to use a chocolate bar, as you do in a lot of recipes, particularly for ganache, where you crush and, add your cream. But I use instead this Lent Excellence Chili dark chocolate bar. It's a 3.5 ounce bar, and if you were going to make the ganache, you would need 2 of these. So you need one for the cupcake itself, and then you'd need one to make your ganache. And I think that will do the cupcakes. This recipe only does 12 cupcakes. It's stated. I have gotten 14 out of it before, so someplace between 12 and 14 cupcakes. They're a rather flat cupcake. You'll notice from the recipe itself, it doesn't dome a lot, and that's just the nature of the cupcake. Some cupcakes do that and some don't. So this is one of my takes, and then I've upped I've added cinnamon and a couple of different things. So that's my cupcake recipe. So last, well, sort of last, our drawing. So the first time ever, I did a random number generator this morning, and it was in the thread, The Goat in the Rug. If you wanted to have a chance to win that book, you could answer the question, what would you do with the book, and the project bag. It also has a project bag. And the winner was number 11, post 11, and that is Barb 235. Barb 235. And I have already sent you a message on Ravelry to tell you that you are the winner. What I need is your address and your name, because the link there wasn't any information shown in that part. So I'm guessing your name is Barb. But congratulations. I'm so excited that you won. And here is what she will be receiving as soon as I get her address information: the goat in the rug and this project bag. So congratulations again, Barb. So that's exciting. I'm so excited. And remember, we have a lot of make-alongs over there in the group. There's charity make-along, sock blank knitting make-along, stuffy along, think I'm forgetting one along. But please, if you're interested in any of that knitting, go over and join. We do have one of them that I said we would go till October 15th. Also, around October 15th, I will do the drawing for that book, Extra Yarn, which I did the last episode. If you want a chance at that book, there's still plenty of time. What I'll do, even though I say like mid-October, I'm not going to do the drawing until the morning. I'm going to podcast closest past that. So I don't know what that date will be. I'll just keep it open until I'm going to podcast that day, and then I will do the random number generator, because my feeling is more inclusive. Include as many as possible. So that's another drawing coming up. But I'm going to be adding a thread as soon as I'm done here today, or as soon as I can when I'm done here today, for another drawing to celebrate. We have 206 subscribers to the YouTube channel. I am beyond. Take every superlative that goes along with excited and surprised and put them out there, because I'm amazed. I don't know how it happened. I think maybe the podcast got recommended someplace, showed up in recommendations. I had one person say that's how it was, and I don't know how else anybody would find me other than maybe searching knitting, but I don't think I'd come up then either. Who knows? I have no idea. I'm just so excited. I kept saying, okay, well, if there's ever like 25 subscribers, I'll do a drawing, and it's just has grown every day. I can't even tell you, it's taken my breath away quite a bit. So to celebrate that, and I thought, okay, well, I'll make this, and I made it, and we'll do this at 200, and it's 206, so we're there. I'm going to put it out there. I will wait to draw. I will give, maybe before my next podcast, and at that time, I will do a drawing for this project bag that I made, and it is a batik. It has a little dragonfly progress keeper here on this zipper. If you open this one, you've got a little pocket up front. It has a detachable handle. The zipper at top, the way I do my zippers where they hang off this way, allows it to open up all the way, so you can really do even like this and get down in there. And if you need, there is another zippered compartment inside, and a skein of yarn. This is a skein of yarn that, I'm not a yarn dyer, but I have experimented trying to do my own colors and things, and I tried to pick up the colors that were in this bag. Where can I get this so you can actually see some of the colors? I'm not sure with the bag you're getting quite the color that it is. I think the color maybe is a little blown out. I should just stay still. But there's olive green in there, and there's teal, and there's purple. So this skein of yarn is fingering weight yarn. It is an 80/20. It's Cloudborne yarn that I ordered from Craftsy, and I think it's the high twist. So it could be a pair of socks or even a shawl, a shawlette. So this comes with the bag, and this is my prize for our over 200 subscribers. And thank you, thank you, thank you. I can't thank you enough. It's so, I can't describe it. It's so nice to think that I'm not just talking to the iPad here. There are people out there. So thank you again so much. And this will be a prize. Now, I am planning another surprise. I'm about halfway done with the packaging, or the delivery method, if you will. I'm being a little enigmatic here. I have all of the contents of the prize itself, but this is going to be a prize for membership in the Ravelry group. And right now we have 68 members. So and I may have to bring the number down if we don't get 75, but I thought 75 members, and as soon as I see that happen, I will put the thread in the Ravelry group. For it needs to be to somebody early November, or I need to mail it early November so that it can get to the lucky person before December 1st. So it is of an Advent calendar nature, although you don't have to celebrate Christmas to enjoy it. It will have a bit of a Christmas look to it, and some of the items will be slightly Christmassy in nature, but for the most part, it's a knitter-friendly things that are coming, and it's in the way of an Advent calendar. So there will be something to open for 25 days, and then actually a special ending prize. So I'm not going to tell what that is. If I had the delivery method finished, I would show that part to you, because that wouldn't give too much away. but I'm only about halfway done. I've been working on it for the last few days, and I need to do a little bit more crafty kind of work on it. But I'm so excited to have membership in the Ravelry group. And that reminds me, I never mentioned where you could find me. Anna Pickle Knitting is the name of the podcast. If you go to the groups tab on Ravelry and search either Pickle or Anna Pickle Knitting, you can find the group. And I'd love to have you join us. As I said, there's, I think, 68 members right now, which is incredible. If you'd like, introduce yourself in the introductions thread. There's an asking questions thread. There are chatter threads for the make-alongs that I have going, and they all have time for you to join and finish something. And also threads for giveaways. So the only one that won't be really available anymore is the Goat in the Rug giveaway, because that one is done. So I'm just so excited about being able to share some things with you. Let me see. Oh, another thing that just totally excited me was last night I was watching Adelaide Cottage podcast, and I mentioned her yarn to you before. I don't know when I found her podcast. It was sometime last year, and once I found it, I actually went back and binge watched all of them. And she doesn't podcast like every week or anything like that. So the podcast came out, and it might have been a couple of days ago, but I only saw it last night, and so I stayed up and watched it. And at the very end, she mentioned I had sent her a couple of bags for herself, because she makes the Pop-Tarts yarn, and I had Pop-Tart fabric, so I made a Pop-Tart bag for her, and I also made another one. Thought she could use it as a giveaway for something. So I don't sell bags, but I love to make them. I make too many of them because, as I mentioned, I have a little problem with sometimes having to have things match if it's going to work out like this. It matches. I actually dyed the yarn, to match the fabric. So at the end of her podcast, she showed my bags, and I was sitting there, my heart, like it skipped a beat. I was just so flabbergasted and excited. So if you happen to watch this, Shauna, thank you so much. You absolutely made my day. And she already made my day, because yesterday, and I know she did not show this when I was watching last night, but I mentioned before I was part of the Gilmore Girls Yarn Club. And the first club, this is the last in that, it's the September yarn. Now I'm going to show it because I have it, and I know she didn't show it because she was just mailing them out when she was doing the podcast. So if you're part of that club and you don't want to see, you want to wait and be surprised in the mail, then please look away right now, because I'm going to show this beautiful skein called Luke's Pancakes. And she always has a progress keeper, this club. Look at the gnome knitter. I have ordered from her before. Made this little progress keeper, which you can look at. I won't describe too much, and I won't describe the yarn too much in case there are people who don't want to see it. But I'm so excited about that. So Adelaide Cottage, Shauna at Adelaide Cottage, really made my day yesterday. Thank you. That was so very sweet of you. And I'm just looking down at my notes again to make sure I don't forget anything. We did the drawings. We've got the cross stitch. So, and I did my book. I think I'm done. Talked about what I'm going to be doing next, and I need to get some work done here. So thank you so much for watching with me today. I hope everyone could hear. And I hope I don't sound like I'm yelling. I had, initially there were some sound issues with the very first episode, although I have to tell you, on my computer, if I turn the sound up, I can hear it, and I can hear it on my iPad as well. But I think it's some, different devices, the volume just works differently. I don't even hope to be able to explain it to you. But I did try to work on that with, first of all, a microphone which did not work. The sync was off, and I found that distracting. So I re-recorded that podcast. I tried to speak up. I'm doing it at a time that I don't have to be quiet to keep my grandson from waking up. So I hope people can hear it. I haven't had only one other comment, and that comment was made in the group. And the person said, I can't hear you. And I did reply back saying essentially what I'm saying now, that, you know, I don't have someone who can help me with this. Technically, all I can do is go online, which I have done repeatedly, and try to find a way to solve this problem. But at this point, I can use my video camera. I'm not happy with it, although it's a good camera and it focuses well. I don't like when you put something, you know, close that you have to sit and wait for it to focus and refocus or manually focus. I prefer the iPad because it seems to focus on its own and know what it's doing. So that's essentially what I told the person. But the next morning when I got up, there had been a reply, and then he had deleted both of his comments. So I didn't see the second comment that he made after I had commented. So then I deleted my comment as well. I wish I knew how to delete the whole thread, since it's actually empty, but I haven't really found a way to do that either. Anyway, I'm rambling on, and this is meaningless. I hope you can hear, but any comments you have for me for growth producing feedback, please give it. You can put it over in the Ask Away thread. You can put it in the down bar on the YouTube. So you can find me at Ravelry. I'm also on Instagram. And when I signed up for Instagram, I just used the first part of my email, my home email, as my name long before I thought about doing a podcast. And that is rclawson1 on Instagram. Of course, I'll put all this on the down bar for everybody, as I do each time, and at the end as well. And I do have a Gmail account for the podcast, inapicklenitting@gmail.com. So if you can also email me if you have questions. You can put things in the down bar on YouTube. I try to check that. I don't really see notifications very often, but I can find them when I think about doing it. So I've had some of those and replied that way. So happy to try and answer anything that I didn't tell you about. I know I didn't mention needle sizes, or all the yarn types today. That information is on each project page. The only project I don't have a page for yet is that latest Wishmaker shawl by the Shawl Society. And I will be starting that project page right away. I only cast that shawl on yesterday and just haven't gotten a chance to take a picture and get the details in there. But I will do that today. So you should be, by the time this goes up, you should be able to find all those new threads for the giveaways. And, well, I won't put the one on for the 75 members yet. I will wait till I see 75 members, and I hope that's soon, because it's so nice to have people out there and think I'm knitting with other people. And isn't it amazing, YouTube and just, well, all of the internet, everything that's out there. But I learned to knit from YouTube. If it didn't exist, I would never have learned to knit at all. And I learned to grow as a knitter from Ravelry, and it's just so amazing. I've had people join our group from Norway, Australia, New Zealand, Canada, just so many places around the world, and it really takes on that expression, it's a small world. It feels smaller and more connected and more cozy because of this part of the development in our world. It's so new, and yet it's taken on. And I'll tell you something that I really appreciate about it too is I heard it said that, oh, well, Facebook, which I don't really use anymore. I have a Facebook account, but I'll think about going that way for the podcast if that looks like something that would be useful. But I was on there for quite a while and found I just spent too much time just reading everybody's stuff, and I needed that time for knitting. So I just kind of pulled back from that quite a bit. And but I'd heard, oh, well, Facebook is for old people. But you know how wonderful. Isn't that terrific? That the internet isn't just used by young people. This technology is not just, it's for everybody. That I listened to a lady tell me about, again, I'm going off on a tangent here, so you can certainly cut off because I don't have much to say here. But her children had never met relatives they had in the Philippines, because she and her husband lived here, raised their family, and because of Facebook, she has been able to introduce her children to their family, and she's been able to see nieces and nephews she's not ever met before. And I think, isn't wonderful. My mother is over 80 and she uses Facebook every day so she can see what her children, her grandchildren, her great-grandchildren are doing, her friends, her family that's farther away from her. It just keeps them connected, and I think it's marvelous. It's I can't say enough. But YouTube has let me share with you and make me feel so good about doing it. So thank you, YouTube and the internet and everybody out there. And I hope you've turned it off by now because I'm definitely off on a tangent here. But thanks for sticking with me. It was so nice to talk to you again, and I'll look forward to coming back to you very soon. Bye-bye.